I knew being a big titty muncher would pay off. This man, this absolute man, does fucking everything, and I love him. This is an early thoughts video as he's only been out for a small amount of time, and he's not even fully built for me yet. But I have been using him, and boy, were the milkshake bringers worth the wait. Let me tell you what I think about him, like his playstyle, and some other things to consider with it, and what I think some of his trade-offs are compared to other support-like characters. I think the trade-off part is probably the most important. If you want a quick answer, I think he's extremely valuable, and anyone telling you he'll brick your account, or some shit like that, probably got hit too hard by Phoebes. He's flexible, fun, and possesses more boons than the banes everyone told you he possessed. I won't blame you for waiting, but I think Brant's gonna be a slept-on unit. You should consider swinging by to pick him up, if not for your account, then for a date on the high seas. As usual, timestamps are here for you. Anyways, his playstyle is absolutely my favorite thing. I don't mean how you play, like quick swap or main DPS, I mean how he plays. It's flashy, fun, and great for aerial gameplay. Sounds very similar to Chang-Li, and I definitely think that if you get Brant, you should consider also hitting up Chang-Li. They work absolutely perfect together. Brant is part of the Mile High Club as that is where you'll get most mileage out of him, in the air. Why do I say this? Well, let's look at his Forte accumulation. On ground, his basic attacks are probably the slowest out of everything that I have tested. This is important to know because depending on how you play him, you might not need to use one combo when another can suffice. Knowing how much a combo will give you will help you not waste too much time if you didn't need to. It's not as bad as it sounds, but here are the results of where things land if you do just one full attack sequence. In moment-to-moment gameplay, will you be piecing these together like a savant mathematician? No, you'll probably just click your way through and it'll be fine. But if you want optimizations, I think there may be something there. But what I notice is that each combo is roughly the same amount of time. The thing that looks important to me though is the air time for a reason I'll discuss in a bit. But the obvious best way to fill it up is after Liberation because your Forte meter fills 2 times as fast for 12 seconds, along with buffing you harder, aka the Aflame state. The catch though is that it will end after you do a full Forte attack and your time on field is essentially 1 rotation of mid-air attacks, maybe give 1 or 2 seconds of leeway. That means you have to go straight from Liberation to fulfilling your Forte and you have literally 0 time to do anything else, like getting hit. Outside of this restriction though, Brant feels the most free out of all of the characters because of how he can essentially make aerial quick swapping combat possible while still feeling and looking clean and being able to easily come back to the ground if you need to. He feels much better than someone like Camellia because of her secondary form keeping her in air with no movement but a wider AoE. You can get some airtime with certain team comps like Jinshi, Chang-Li, and Jaja, but outside of Chang-Li, and even then you personally need to make that decision as most will just do her ground version of the skill, Brant is essentially made for the air. It's what makes him feel so great. But there are some things you should know. There's this part in his kit, specifically in his skill and aerial play, which you may experience depending on the restraining order range of enemies Brant's been around. It's essentially laying out what attacks will happen if you miss or hit while in air or with your skill. Now, this is something to be aware of since you may feel this sometimes, and it's on highly mobile or teleporting enemies. Here's an example. I was fighting Thundering Mephis and the miss portion kept happening to me. This is how it happens. And this is something to consider because yes, while his range is really huge and hard to miss, when you have enemies that will teleport or move around a lot, you are more prone to having this happen. This may mess up your flow or make the gameplay feel a little jarring. My tip for this happening is to just jump and start the combo over, or use your skill and then begin the combo if it's available. I've also run into this skill sometimes not working too, like he will just shoot and then I can't attack in the air to start the attacks, but let me know if that's just a me problem or something else. The last playstyle thing I want you to be aware of too is that Brant's dumpy Forte anchor needs to drop before you swap off to get the outro buffs. This isn't new to the game, but Brant will feel it, I think more compared to the others because his anchor drop animation is so long. Again, you can quick swap off during that animation, but you will lose Roshia or Sanhua's outro buff. Even with these little quirks though, he's yet another showcase of Kuro being masters at making fluid characters while providing something we haven't seen in the game yet. Men. I mean, a grapple playstyle. Moving away from his playstyle, his role on your team and semi-echo flexibility are other parts of what make Brant desirable to me. While Brant is definitely a jack of all trades, he can lean a bit into the roles he lays out for you. However, I know most people will be speccing him out with the Tidebreaker set or the Molten set. By the way, Meigi put out some calcs on which set you should, quote-unquote, get if you're worried about damage maxing between Tidebreaker and the Molten sets. You could also go full support with Moonlight or even Rejuvenating Glow. However, the problem is that you may find it difficult to literally get any of these sets depending on how many of the energy stat echoes you saved. This is freed up a bit if you have his weapon, as that will supplement an energy stat, making you able to swap out one 3-cost echo for fusion or attack. I also want to point out too that Tidebreaker needs 250 minimum energy to get the 30% damage buff and 15% attack buff. If you can't hit it, then I'd say to not use that set until you do. I think that this is the biggest hurdle for Brant, the energy echoes. One more thing too, no, you don't need the max 280 energy like some drama queens annoyed everyone about. Again, that's if you're really trying to squeeze every drop out of his cannonballs. He will still function well at 250 energy, and hell, for me, I've been using him with the Molten set with like 70 energy below the max 280 and almost 40 below recommended 250 minimum. He's still putting in work. They were overreacting. With his multi-tool role and semi-flexibility, I guess the trade-off lies at the Echo RNG. Speaking of trade-offs, while Brant can occupy many of his presented roles well, he will not be excelling past those around him in those same roles, as is the fate of all-rounders. For example, if you build him as a support, he gives great benefits, but I think for most, he will not be fully replacing someone like Verena, and especially not Shorekeeper in terms of buffing and healing. He can lighten their load a little bit, but he lightens it through a specific way by dispersing support capabilities and adding more to the damage department. He won't be passively healing, as you need to work for it through his gameplay, which is slower compared to Verena's healing, and again, not passive like Shorekeepers. Through this work to get his benefits, you are prone to getting tossed around like a baby in a dryer. You're not just hitting the ground, you are falling from the air, hitting the ground, then needing to get up. So when you're punished, you are punished. You'll notice it especially during his Forte use if you're trying to use it during enemy attacks thinking it'll be okay, and it feels worse when you're under the Liberation of Flame state. It's like waxing your pubic hairs.
We thought you went crazy.
Yep.
So while you may be above a good portion of enemies and attacks with his playstyle, when enemies are aggressive enough and you're not careful, you can feel that trade-off. Brant may also be put under sub-DPS designations, which are occupied by characters like Yinlin or Sanhua. However, I see Brant's closest comparison point being Jianshin, but fusion and just generally feeling way better. And much like Jianshin, those are some considerations you may not hear from other guides. But anyways, I'm enjoying trying to look down Brant's blouse, and at least for me, he will be subbing in for Verena and Shorekeeper in some areas. Like, him being combined with Shorekeeper can make Cheng Li hit really hard if you decide that she will be your main damage dealer. For me, he adds the mix-up that I want for supports, and I hope that as we continue on, we start to get more of these support characters that can not only do support stuff, but can also dish out damage in a more comprehensive way, similar to amplifiers in PGR. Of course, you may still want to wait for more information on what others are saying about Brant, as more things could be found out as we go go on. If I see the need to make an addendum to Brant's swing and anchor, then I'll put it out there. In any case, I hope this helped, and let me know if you're enjoying Brant and if you're planning to pick him up. I appreciate you, thank you for letting me take your time, and be safe out there.